Is time travel possible? And how powerful are numbers? I just had a conversation with Michael Dunworth, and he told me about the 2 superpowers you can have in a digital information age. I can guarantee you he is on fire as always. Enjoy. Hi Michael, great to have you on the show.
Yeah, very nice. Thanks very much for the time. I appreciate it. It's been nice chatting and going back and forth, and thanks for just showing interest in it. Like it's a novel thing, and not very many people have looked into it. So I appreciate you taking a look. It's cool. It means a lot.
Yeah, you put a time lock on some of your Bitcoin. These sets can be spent for more than 100 years. They are just waiting there, open in public, and then you publish the private keys to them. Why?
So it's like a public utility almost, where it's like everyone has the private key. So let's imagine Powerball, right? Like the lotto, right? So everyone wins $1 billion. Well, imagine everyone had the winning ticket, but it doesn't get drawn for another 100 years. So can you hold this winning ticket for 100 years? It's like Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka, he gave the golden tickets, but it's like everyone gets the golden ticket. It's just who can hold on to it.
I have it right here.
That's it. Yes.
This is the exact reading script.
That's it. That's literally it. It's like a treasure map. It's like, and people can hold on to it. It's there for everyone. And I think that premise is quite interesting. Because it's sort of like because Bitcoin is immutable, right? Like we don't know how to break it. And that's really interesting because when you think about, it's really strong. No. Concrete is very strong. Steel is very strong. Immutable is something like the number 6. That's not strong. The number 6 is ephemeral, like it's eternal, like it transcends anything. Like steel is physical, like that can bend and break. The number 6, I can't bend it. It's like in here, you know what I mean? So that's immutable, just like the color blue. I can't erase the color blue from the spectrum. And so Bitcoin's kind of like that. And so when you think about that, it's like, it's like the sword in the stone, Excalibur, where he put the sword in the stone and only some chosen one could pull it out of the stone. But that's what these keys are like. They're like Satoshis that are locked in a stone that in 100 years, someone will pull it out. I don't know who, but my guess is that everyone works together to pull it out. And that's my hope. By that time, we should all get along because we're all on the same planet, remember? Like, I'm not different to you. Like you just live in a different country to me, but we're still stuck on this rock in the universe of a bajillion people or planets or whatever it is. Maybe it's a good idea for us to all work together. Just maybe. I have no reason to have a problem with some cunt down the road when the whole universe is trying to, do something way bigger than itself. So I think humanity as a species, we're quite immature like that, where we're still about our own shit, like our own problems, like baffles me. But I think we're gravitating towards a more universal kind of cohesive team. If you look at the evolution of humanity, now we have a global telephone. We didn't have one before. So all the countries are connected by the telephone or the internet. We have a global language. And that's not the most popular language, which is Mandarin's the most popular language, but that's by population. So when you're choosing the most global something, you want to choose what is the second, the biggest alternative, the most common alternative, because that means when you pluck anyone out at random, the most common alternative language, and usually that's English. So we'll call English the dominant global language because it's the most common secondly spoken language, I think. But so English, telephone, and now we've got a store of value. So we have a global currency, which is Bitcoin. And it's got to be global like English is global. Like English, you can't delete English. Like, you know what I mean? They can't change it. It's fixed. In the same way, Bitcoin fits that same level of immutability, and it needs to, because if you want to have something that 8 billion humans can build on without tampering it and breaking it, then it needs to be really fucking strong, part of my language. But you know what I mean? So people sort of don't grok Bitcoin for the strength that it is. Like we think it's cool because it's like, cool, fuck the man. This is immutable money. It's like, yeah, that's cool. Dude, wait till the physicists get a load of this. This is an unbreakable line in space-time. And like that as an experiment for a physicist is unbelievable. And like, what CERN, the big donut
Yes.
So what they do, they're going to smashing particles together. The Bitcoin blockchain does that every 10 minutes. It smashes 2 hashes together. It drives the hashes in reverse, so it gets the last hash from the last block, puts it back to front, so it reverses the endian, and it smashes to try and make this new hash. And that's what the Bitcoin the miners are doing every time. They're smashing these particles together, or numbers, to try and produce a new number. And so it's kind of interesting, but I think Bitcoin is actually going to take a much more physics-orientated lens in the future, because it's an energy system. Theoretically, like if we look at it practically, theoretically, whatever we want to call it, it is just a storage of energy. And we translate that into all these other things, immutable money and blah, blah, blah. But really, it's just a ledger of energy, where it went and who got paid for the energy. Everything else is ancillary beyond that. Anyway, so that's kind of the framework that I'm coming at it from.
Yeah, great. You said time-locked Bitcoin are as close as time travel as we can be. Could you elaborate on that?
Definitely. Well, here's the thing, right? In time travel, the thing about time travel is for it to ever exist, it means it must always have existed. So let's say you and I wanted to go back 100 years. We need to be able to get to 100 years ago, which means if we're going to teleport there, whatever matter or mechanics or whatever it is that brings us to life there in 100 years ago, the atoms and particles must still be bound to the same rules that we are today. So like whatever the rules were or are for time travel, they will have always been persistent throughout the whole of history. And so that's kind of interesting. So when we look at persistence, now we're starting to get somewhere in terms of the conversation of time travel. So when I have a persistent ledger that can't break, I don't have any technology to break it, and no one else does on this planet at the moment. So if we don't have technology to break it, it's like a billboard that the entire history, like past, present, and future, will watch and look at and see. And so you get to carve your name on it. And it's like, well, that means if I'm putting my name on it, someone might read that in the future. And it's like, oh, that's cool. But what if I put a message on there? Instead of my name, like, fuck me, who am I? No one gives a fuck about my name. But like, what if I put a message on there? That's kind of cool. And then it's like, well, the message, why would they read the message? And it's like, well, what if I gave them a reason to read it? It's like, well, how can you do that? You're 100 years before them. Well, what if I time locked the message and the message was to be read? The only reason to read it is because the bounty is so big. So that's like, people are like, hold on. How big's the Powerball Lotto? Oh, the Powerball Lotto is $100 trillion. Well, yeah, if my odds are 1 in a billion, I'm going to go and buy 1 million Powerball tickets because I've got arbitrage there. I have a better chance of winning. Like, it's a positive expected value for me. And that's the same reason with these coins that are locked, the relative block reward at the time. So right now the block reward is what, 3.25 or something, or 3.15 or some shit. Now, in their future, it's going to be 1 Satoshi. But we've locked 50 million of them. So instead of 1 Satoshi, it's going to be 50 million. So that right now is like a miner. Would you turn on a miner right now if I told you, hey, at Christmas time, on Christmas Day, we're all going to mine and there's going to be a block that's worth 100 million Bitcoin?
Yeah, of course.
And obviously that breaks the barriers of how many Bitcoins are available. But theoretically, that is where it's actually going to be closer to 155 million Bitcoin. So right now a block reward is 3. It's kind of the equivalent of saying, hey man, turn those old Bitcoin miners on. Dude, it's a fucking 150 million Bitcoins tomorrow. I don't give a fuck if we lose. I'll pay the electricity. And that's the mentality. So what's that going to do for security, right? For security of the network, because my paranoia, and I get frustrated because a lot of people in the industry, they want to talk about Bitcoin, its issuance, and when the supply runs out, how the security budget won't be effective enough. Well, I've just paid for the security budget for the next 1,000 years. So that is legitimately, cryptographically, physically, theoretically, scientifically, it's moot. That point is done. That's a finished point. There's no argument. And so for me now, I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's done. So it's like, if I want to keep the chain secure, like if I want this thing to live forever, then we've got to make sure that the carrot to keep mining is going. And so as the Bitcoin rewards, let's say this is our graph and it starts here and then it goes halves. As we keep halving it, the incentive to keep jumping on the Bitcoin train and securing it, it's decaying theoretically, unless the price is going up, right? And so Bitcoin mining it's not about, people talk about the rewards that people get for Bitcoin mining. Oh, NFTs and, ordinals and stuff, they're making keys. That's fine. But a Bitcoin miner, before they turn their mining rigs on at scale, they have to pour concrete. They have to get a lease. They've got to get buildings. They've got to get employees. They've got to get an HR department. They've got to get machines, equipment. That's all 2 years runway. So as a miner, I'm not going to start Bitcoin mining tomorrow I'm not going to start investing in the plant, the power plant, the batteries, the machines and all that for 2 years away if I don't know that there's going to be a predictable reward schedule. So yes, fees are nice. Oh, look how much money the miners made just through transaction fees. Sure, but that's hot and cold. They can't build and hope that it's a hot day in the future. They've got to be like, well, what are the definites? Like, what is the actual definite rewards that we have a chance at earning? And they'll work backwards from that because that's predictable. In life, we've got risk and predictability. And when you move risk up, predictability goes down. When you move predictability up, risk goes down. And so these levers, we can choose to turn them. So that's why I lock these coins there, because now every miner knows with absolute certainty that there is rewards well beyond, way bigger than they could even dream if they are willing to jump on and secure the network. And so that's kind of, in my opinion, that's the sort of mental models or the carrots that we need in the network for people to keep the network going. We got very lucky as a species to have Bitcoin when we had it. We're so early to it. Do you know how blessed we are? In the same way we talk about, generations above us that got houses very cheaply. They could buy property for 7 berries and now it's worth, $20 million and people can't buy a home in Sydney or whatever. All that shit, right? Which is fine. But our generation, our houses is Bitcoin. That's our blessing to us. And there's other people before we came. There was property and industrialization. We can't rebuild car factories. That's not our epoch. But we can build on Bitcoin and we can make the future of Bitcoin really exciting for other generations. We don't want to fuck it up. We want to make it a great thing. And we want to be mindful of it because we can learn from all the other fuck-ups of not doing positive sum operations. And what I mean by that is like, look, we made plastic bottles and shit. That's mad. But now the fucking ocean's full of plastic and fish and shit are eating plastic and we're fucking getting microplastics in our ball sacks. Like, that's not good. But it's like everything that we think is a solution is actually a problem for the next one. But Bitcoin is quite mindful of that. And we're all learning from all the past fuck-ups where we're like, oh, we'll just do this to fix it. It's like, well, what does that do? Does that cause more of a problem? So the methodical engineering approach of Bitcoin and money is really interesting to me. And that's going to set future generations up for success. A lot of people like to say, it sucks. I'm too old to discover the planet, but too young to discover the stars. I get it. Fair enough. Bro, let me tell you, you have Bitcoin. This is about to be the fucking ground of the digital universe for thousands, hundreds of years probably, if we don't break it. But what could be more exciting? Hey, man, it's probably going to end up becoming a time machine. Oh, yeah, but I can't go to Mars. No, you can go fucking anywhere in the universe as long as your imagination lets you. That's the kind of thing that we're going in that direction where it's not like, oh, well, we get to go to Mars. No, going to Mars is like trying to say, will we ever break the sound barrier with a horse and cart? Like, we don't need to break the sound barrier with a horse and cart. Like, that just doesn't work. Like, same way, it's like burning a rocket for 3 years to get to a planet that's dead. It's like, nah, that's probably like, that mechanically is not an elegant solution, right? Like, that's not elegant. That's heavy, industrial, burning. It's like a brute force effort. So I don't think we'll go that way. I think that'll be the horse and cart. Rockets are the horse and cart. But anyway, so I've gone on a bit of a ramble and I apologize, Nico, sorry. But yeah, Bitcoin's very secure and we want to make sure that it keeps being secure. So having predictable incentives is for me, I'm not going to be alive in 100 years, but that's going to make me sleep from the grave, rest in peace, a lot easier if I know that there is a carrot waiting for miners to turn their machines on. As the time gets more and more likely that they'd be turning their machines off, how do we make sure they're turning more and more machines on? Do you know what I mean? We want it to actually boost the network security, not welcome the decay that's happening. If that makes any sense. Sorry, I'll pause. I'll take a breath.
There are laws of physics we can't deny. Is Bitcoin like a social law we can't deny? And is Bitcoin maybe just like gravity quietly forcing its influence on us?
Yes. So the problem is always with dependencies. So any dependency that we have, we will always become a slave to it. If you're a smoker, you're a slave to your addiction of nicotine, right? Like if you're a heroin addict, you're a slave to that. If you're an alcoholic, you're a slave to that. We are slaves to the sun. We need the sun. The sun is a dependency of our planet, photosynthesis, our bodies, and everything. Now, money is a dependency of our society. So there's a really kind of good rule that I use with the sun, and I use it with Bitcoin as well. And it basically says, if I didn't make it and I can't break it, then start worshiping it. And that's pretty much fair enough. If I didn't make it, it's not mine, and I can't break it, so it's better than me, then yep, no worries. Yes, boss. Yes, boss. You know, and that's just an easy way to fall in line. Like, yeah, the sun. I obey the sun because it's much stronger than me. We all obey it, whether we like to say we don't or not. Your clock goes off when the sun gets up. Mine gets up. The whole world, if we could zoom out and watch everyone wake up in the morning, we would all wake up at similar times. Like at 7 o'clock in the morning, you'd see brrr, all these people rise in unison. At 7:15, so on and so forth. So we are all setting our watches to the heaviest source of energy, always. And so digitally, that's Bitcoin. Bitcoin mining a new block to a machine, that's like the sun coming up. Just like us. We see the sun coming up. It's like a new day has started. Great, let's get to work on a new day, new opportunities. Same thing. Oh, they found a new block? Beautiful. Let's get to work on the next block. And it's very much like that. And so machines would look to it like a way of setting the time almost, because it is like, if energy is the record of time, right? The timestamps of time is just energy, then that's what Bitcoin is. So to machines, Bitcoin represents intervals because it's like a clock. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Block, block, block. Just like we watch the hands of a clock, or we watch ourselves orbiting the sun. Sun comes up, sun goes down. Same thing. New block comes in, new block goes out. Tick, tock. Same thing. And so machines will worship Bitcoin just the same way we worship the sun. And it doesn't mean we get on our hands and knees and pray to the sun every day. Some people do that, but we worship it by orientating ourselves around its existence. And so just because you say, oh, you know, it's like, do you worship Bitcoin now? No, but yes, like as in it takes all my mental bandwidth. I orientate my financial decisions around it. My financial decisions determine my physical and most theoretical, mental actions and behaviors. So yeah, I mean, do I worship it? No, but to someone else looking in, yes. Like I'm in denial. It's like I'm a battered wife, right? It's like, does your husband beat you? No. It was my fault. It was my fault. So anyway, but what a gift, dude. Like think about that. We get to be here now this early. Think about this. We are throwing around sats, like Satoshi, like people are fucking spamming each other on Lightning Network with a message saying, visit my fucking OnlyFans cam. And they're sending like 100 sats, 200 sats, 50 sats. That's days worth of the world's energy in the future. Like, I hope there is people in the future watching this podcast or whatever, they're watching us talk, and they go, man, that dude got it. He was grateful for the sats he had at the time because he knew how valuable they would be to us today. But when you think about 1 Satoshi equals 10 minutes of the world's energy, that is horrifying. I get like chills in my spine thinking about that. So let's think about that. 1 Satoshi equals 10 minutes of the world's energy. Now, what is 10 minutes of the world's energy in 100 years? Fuck me. Mental. Now, imagine 100 years from now, what advancements they've got in mathematics, science, and technology. They're probably, here's the weird thing. They are Bitcoin is like pressing record on humanity because it timestamps everything. It's like a recording device recording all our actions, right? So it's very, very likely and highly probable that they are watching us right now because they're looking back. They have a ledger, an eternal ledger to look back on. And so they're going to be looking back and be like, well, what was the origins like of Bitcoin? And it's like, well, let's find out. And they're going to go through the origins and they'll probably have ways to synthesize it all in 1 second, right? They can download or convert 100 podcasts into one piece of information that translates it all, like compression, right? Like a hash does that for us in Bitcoin blockchain. And so it's all these interesting things, but I mean, the future is watching us. Like this isn't maybe they are. They're watching us. They are watching our every move and every single action that they are going to take in their day to day is because of the actions we took today. So now we think about that. It's like, well, fuck, maybe it isn't about me. And maybe it isn't about, I don't know, whatever, me trying to make 10 million bucks or something. Maybe I do have a chance to plant a bunch of fucking trees that a whole civilization can live under in the future. We have a chance to plant the Amazon right now. Like that's, if you want to think about it, it's like vegetation. They're trying to make the deserts in China. They're trying to put vegetation into them so that the future generations have a better vegetation or whatever. Same thing. We're trying to set Bitcoin up like that. Whether it's time-locked coins. Now, no, that's not really a popular thing to do. And I get the unpopularity of it because it's obviously Bitcoins are valuable. But Bitcoins are only valuable because the Bitcoin network is secure. And so if you wanted to give away Bitcoins, locking them in a way that promotes security is basically the best thing you can do. So like if you burn your coins, right? If I go to the grave and I die and I burnt all my Bitcoin, like I just sent them to zero, I took my private key to the grave. Everyone now has more Bitcoin because you have a higher portion of the available supply. Like if I've taken it to the grave, those coins are gone, they're burned. So with that, it means that, so the best thing you can do, because it's sort of like instead of printing money, you're deleting money, which is interesting because Bitcoin, we are all keeping our fingers on the printer, so to speak. And what I mean is that we all have our finger on the delete button. Every person who holds Bitcoin has a chance to reduce the supply if they want. Now it's like, well, why would they do that? They wouldn't. But if they're going to die, maybe there's a way to reduce the supply on the way out. Being like, see you boys, thanks for the ride and good on you. Here's all your bags. They're pumped by 1% because I had 1% of the supply or whatever it is, right? So, there's so much more that meets the eye. And it is kind of like a big group project that the future is judging us, the past, on our ability to execute as a team on that group project. And I think right now, that the community is doing such an exceptional job. I find I've learned so much about, values, principles, all these kind of things, discipline, like all these kind of things, the engineering choices in Bitcoin and the way that they're so delicate with everything. Nothing gets a quick, yeah. Like they're treating it like it is the International Space Station. Like we don't want to put a fucking screw wrong because that might mean to something in 50 years that screw comes back and fucks out or whatever, right? So I like the methodical engineering approach. I like the modularity of it all, keeping things in little pieces so that you can always replace the pieces that are broken. And that's like the beauty with good engineering is usually modularity. It's like everyone's very purpose driven. Just like if humanity as a species is a computer or a big machine, if every person is doing their purpose, what they're the best in the world at, whatever that be, then they are committing their maximum potential in the right direction. In just like with, machines, like we're doing the same thing basically. We're trying to put everything together to do its job really well. Bitcoin isn't going to be a world computer. Bitcoin's not going to be the fastest. Bitcoin's not going to be, it might be the most expensive, it might not, who knows? But it won't change. Like it's immutable. That is its feature. Hi, I don't know. I'm not the fastest. Yeah, sure. They can do blocks in 1 second. No worries. I don't do that, but I never change. That's my feature. If you would like something that doesn't change as the foothold of your financial ecosystem, hi, I'm a customer. I'd be happy to help. Now, Ethereum, can I make the future of finance on Ethereum? No, I fucking can't, because I can't make the future of anything on something that changes. That's like building a house on a fucking island. Like, the reason why we find bedrock before we put any like buildings on top of anything, we dig to bedrock, because bedrock is certain. Bedrock's not going to change. Because if I was going to build it on sand, it's like, oh, what's the weather like in 6 months? I don't know, maybe the tide will rise. Fuck it. Like, look at the Palm Islands, right? So the Palm Islands in the architecture, the megastructures in Dubai. So they make all these islands, these beautiful man-made islands, which incredible engineering, incredible. And one of the things that they do, the way that they organize these islands into looking like palm trees, or they made the world islands where they made each island look like a little part of the world. So the way they do that is there's a process called rainbowing. I think it's called rainbowing. What happens is there's a big boat drives along with a big straw down in the bottom of the boat, and it's dragging along the sand, and it's going like it's sucking it up and spitting it out. And so they spit it out into a big pile, and now that's sand. So we can't build a house on that, right? So how do we make that pile harder? So what we do, we put a pile on right down the middle of it, and it vibrates, or it squirts actually jets. That what it's doing, it's shaking all the loose sand and compacting it. So when we shake something, it's like organizing it, where it goes like it'll get really compact. And that's kind of like, that's the way we build the bedrock, is by compacting rock solid. Like it's not a mixture of a billion different ingredients. It's just one thing, but it's fucking like really packed tight. Now, if we change that, or we don't find that bedrock, or we don't create that bedrock, we can't ever assume anything can build with longevity on top of it. So if we were trying to build something that lasted for 18 months, then maybe we might not worry about the bedrock. But let me tell you something. If you're trying to build a meaningful building in Japan and you don't call a geologist before you start building, you can't expect it to be immutable, and for a long time. You can expect it to come off second best when there's some sort of, earthquake or seismic sort of shift. And so I think Bitcoin is the methodical, no, we've checked the earth out. We do check the earth out. We don't build shit until we've checked the earth out. And that approach sets a good example. Now, Ethereum has got a more hacky approach, which is cool. It's cool for hacking, developing apps and stuff like web apps. It's a very web mentality. But this is like, we're not building. I don't want people in 200 years to think that we were fucking dumb cunts, basically, part of my language. I want them to think, oh man, like they thought this through. Like, yeah, they weren't just fucking trying to make it for them. They were thinking, well, how is this going to affect people in 50 years, in 80 years, in 100 years? That's the responsibility we have. If we want to talk big and start claiming like, oh, we're really good and, we built this thing and it's going to be money for 1,000 years, good, no worries. I hope you adopt that attitude then. You better adopt that attitude. Don't fucking come at me with this, it's money for 1,000 years, but I'm not going to act like it. If it is, it only stays money for 1,000 years when people use it as money for 1,000 years. So if you're storing it as value, great. And if you're focused on security, great, because security is the only thing that you can promise for something that lives for 1,000 years. Well, was it secure? No, it wasn't, but it lived for 1,000 years. The reason why the universe has lived for 14.6 billion years or 28.2 or whatever the fuck they decide it is because it's secure. The universe has had 100% uptime since I've been around and since you've been around and since every person on Earth's been around. That's one thing we know. So God, whoever he is, he's a slick architect. He's really good at his job. So thanks, dude. Whoever it is, whoever you pray to, they built us. I don't know who they are, but they're pretty fucking good at their job. But now you look at it, it's like the universe is very fair. Very fair. Like as in it's equal and opposite reaction sort of thing, right? And there's no rocket science to it. And Bitcoin's kind of the same. There is no rocket science to it. It's just you do the work, you get paid in coins. That's it. That's all it is. And so now when you think about it, it's like, okay, it is very simple. Now, ultra simplicity means it's when something is ultra simple, it means it's ultra extensible. And what I mean by extensible, I mean that in an engineering capacity, you can plug it into so many different places. You know why we find sand in our pockets and not hot dogs? Because sand is very small and it can fit in our pockets. So we always go, oh, fuck, I've got this fucking sand in my pockets again. And it's usually a bit of dirt or something shit because it can find its way in there because sand or dirt is so extensible because of its size. It can fit anywhere. Now, the reason I don't find, chocolate bars in my pocket is because they're too big and they can't just fall into my pocket all the time. But that's what Bitcoin, that's the elegance of Bitcoin, is when you make something without any requirements to it, because it's only built on maths and cryptography and thermodynamics, really. And like with no barrier to entry, other than if you know what maths is and you know what the work is and stuff, it's all fair game. That's incredible to me. So it's like, okay, so it's built out of nothing, but that makes it so strong. And when you build something out of nothing, it makes it there's a very small attack surface area. So that makes it really secure. And then also it makes it, building something out of nothing makes it really strong, extensible. So when it's built out of nothing, it means it can be put everywhere, because no one needs and this is why they talk about keeping the block size smaller, because if I want to run Bitcoin or you want to run Bitcoin, let's say you make $5 a day and I make $5,000 a day, we shouldn't be cock-blocked from using Bitcoin based on that. So it's like, well, $5 a day, maybe he won't be able to buy as much storage space. Okay, well, so what's a 32 terabyte disk cost? Okay, well, that, or whatever, 2 terabytes or 1 terabyte. But it's about that mentality where we're always moving at the pace of the slowest participant. Not trying to be like, oh, well, fuck them. Like, just figure it out. Like, first come, first serve. No, this is a fucking team effort. It's a group fucking project. And the faster we figure that out, the faster we realize that and learn to play like that, the longer and more successful we all become. That's not a preference of mine. That's just a thing. Like, that's common sense. If you work, many hands make light work. And when we're all aligned towards something, we've all got a common North Star, it makes it harder to fall off the track. You know what I mean? When we all know which way the track's going, it makes it a lot more difficult to go the wrong direction.
So you think that Bitcoin will bring humanity on another level?
Yes, 100%. 100%. Because the division that is created right now is astronomical, but it's all self-inflicted. Like if I was the Prime Minister of the Earth or the CEO of Earth, it'd be done in 2 seconds. Every war would end, every food would get cleaned up. They'd be illegal, you'd be put in jail if you're making shit food. So food, water, shelter, guaranteed. War, not on, because we're all fucking neighbors. And I don't want fucking other people in the universe to think I'm an idiot. Like, I look like a dumb cunt being a human when cunts are shitting on each other and trying to bomb each other. I'm like, I'm not that dumb. I wouldn't do that. I'm not that stupid. Like, I know that it's dumb to nuke my own atmosphere because it's also part of my own atmosphere. Like, Anyway, so yes, it will bring us all together. I'll tell you why. Because in a world where, see, money is an artificial necessity right now. Like oxygen is a very real necessity. Water, very real necessity. Money is slipped into that category of you need it or you'll die, but it's not, there is a pre-mine to it, right? So money you get special, like money is not like air where we all get it, or water, which we all don't get now either. But money is this artificial thing that we kind of injected. So every thought and decision that the entity has that is bound by money, which means humans that are obligated to use money to transact or whatever, it means every thought that I ever have must be considering money in it. Which means if I have different money to you or different money preferences to you, I'm going to be slightly misaligned to you. But if we all have the same money that operates the same way, then we are going to have it's exactly like religion. It's just a framework for belief. Money is a belief system just like religion. In fact, money is probably the biggest religion in the world. It's not real. There's no real money's not real at all. Like it's totally made up. It's 100% artificial. In the same way a religion is. It's just a framework for operating or a belief system for behavior. And that's whether it's your money behaving or it's your morals or whatever it is. But essentially that's all money is. And money is the only reason money exists is because we can't manipulate energy the way that we would like to. So money is a proxy for energy. So when we go, okay, we've got this big lump of energy, call it a big pile of oil or something. Well, fuck, it's worth a lot in the future. Well, let's chop it up. Let's make this proxy thing called money so we don't have to keep carrying loaves of bread and corn around. We'll make a proxy that represents some amount of loaf of bread. Anyway, so I've been kind of rambling a bit, but I do think it brings us together. I do definitely think it brings us together. And I think it's important that people realize that we're not together right now. We're physically on the same planet, but we're not mates. Like, this is terrible. We're all fucking trying to force feed each other's opinions. Like, do you know how stupid we would look to other civilizations? Like, embarrassing. And the funniest part is the smartest people on the planet call us intelligent. Mate, if I walked into a schoolyard and they were considered the smartest kids in the world, and I see two kids fucking shitting in each other's lunchbox, am I going to think that school is full of smart kids or retards? I'm going to think they're all fucking retarded. Like, who the fuck shits in a lunchbox and eats it? Like, that's what we're doing. And people are trying to say we're intelligent. So for me, I'm like, I'll pass on that conversation. I think we're a bunch of dumbasses. Myself included, by the way. I'm just as retarded as well. But I'm saying I'm not. At least I'm sort of, kind of, maybe we could fix the problem. And here's the thing. There's not one motherfucker on this planet, part of my language, there's not one person on the planet that isn't bound in a position of authority or power that is not bound by their desires. So everyone's got these desires. Every desire is a payment away. Whether you are, let's say you're a warlord in the Congo or something, some big warlord, the scariest person ever, you kill people for fun. You have a price. You have a price. Oh, no, I do it for fun. You've got a price. You've got a price. I don't care what you say. You have a price. Oh, and I'm the other person's a big politician. You've got a price. You all have a price. And that's the problem. Bitcoin doesn't have a price. And that's why people hate it so much, because it can't budge. It's the ultimate representation of discipline. It is unchallengeable. Oh, no, hey, man, like, just do me this favor, special treatment, don't tell anyone. Stone face. Nope. Stone face. You Elon Musk? Stone face. Oh, you're the government? Stone face. You all get the same treatment. It's just like the universe. The universe will treat us all equally. It doesn't have favorites. It doesn't pick sides. It just gives everyone the same shit sandwich or the same buffet that we all want. And so it's like, I don't know. I just think Bitcoin is, I haven't seen an opportunity for like fixing this mess in a long time. This is it. It really is.
Could Bitcoin be the missing piece to overcome the great filter when civilizations destroy themselves with technology?
Yes. Well, it can be, but here's the problem. When you unify yourselves on top of one thing, right, which is we've all said, okay, let's all build on top of this money. That's great. But the problem is now, if that money breaks, everyone is in one spot. So it's like putting all our eggs of humanity in one basket. But now, this money is immutable, right? It's apparently immutable. So we all gravitate towards it. We're all standing on top of Bitcoin. But obviously that puts concentration risk, right? So, but I don't think that it's, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it does carry concentration risk, like everything. We need to be more of the mindset that, like, we are on a journey as a species. Like, we've got to figure out what, like, it's really weird, but no one even thinks, like, why the fuck we're here? Like, what are we doing here? It's like, oh, we're here to work. It's like, what do you mean? I'm not here to sit in a concrete building and talk to some stranger. Like, I'm here to figure out, like, I've got a body. Like, this is a computer. Like, what's it capable of? Like, I can only do right now, the only things I do is, like, move my mouth, my eyes, my eyebrows, my ears, my hair a bit, my arms. That's like 9 features. My body, it grows freckles. It grows my hair. It does my facial hair. Like, it fixes scabs. Like, it does heaps of shit. It grows my fingernails. I've got no say in that. And here I am making it out like, oh, yeah. Oh, we're sentient. We're intelligent. Bro, if I gave you a computer and you could open the Paint, Microsoft Paint or Solitaire, and I go, do you know how to use a computer? And you go, yeah. I'd be like, you've got no fucking clue how to use a computer. That's us. We only know how to play Solitaire and Microsoft Paint on our computers. And we're like, oh, yeah, well, blah, 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 rulers of the universe. It's like, no. Actually, all the conscious decisions that we make are the fuck-ups. All the subconscious ones, they hum smoothly. When was the last time your body tried to clean itself and take a shit and did it wrong? It doesn't. It doesn't breathe incorrectly. It doesn't filter your blood incorrectly. It doesn't do anything wrong. In fact, the only cunt that does shit wrong around here, hey, is that dickhead in the mirror, which is me. Yeah, so But I think that's sort of, it's worth considering, right? Like, it's worth thinking about. Let's just for a second humble ourselves for a moment, I think. I think that's fair.
Have you thought about how AI and robotics will use Bitcoin?
Yes, massively. Here's the reason why. If I'm a machine, Last time I checked, I don't know from personal experience, but every time I've ever interacted with a machine, they rely on objectivity. So they don't go, maybe I'll do that. It's yes, no. Yes, no. So if I'm a machine with a yes, no attitude, not a maybe attitude, like let me think about it. No, I'm yes or no. I've got orders. I've got an operation to execute. It's a yes or no answer kind of thing, right? So in that world, I need objectivity. I need certainty. And so when I look for certainty, I can look at all these opportunities. So if I'm a machine and I need to transact with another machine, first thing I'm going to do is say, well, I need this to be certain. Like I need absolute objectivity certainty because I'm a machine. I don't know what emotions are. I don't know what, yeah, maybe tomorrow or yeah, sure, I'll help you out later. I don't know what that means. It's either I did it or I didn't. So with the objectivity, I look to, well, what choices do I have? Okay, so let's go through any distributed system of money. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, whatever you want to call it, right? And then I go through, okay, well, of all these choices, how many of these, how old are they all? And then I'll find the oldest. And I go, okay, well, of the oldest of them, how many have changed? Oh, these have changed. That's, Ethereum's changed 5 times. Bitcoin's only upgraded. So it's only changed it's always backwards compatible. So it hasn't split. But Ethereum has, where they had the DAO hack and stuff. So all these changes to a protocol makes a machine scared, right? It's unexpected behavior, so the machine gets scared. So as a machine, they need certainty. So when they go to choose a money, the choice will come with the thing that has remained the most constant for the longest. And that's going to be Bitcoin. So for me, and that's not even an opinion. You have to argue with yourself in the mirror if you think that's wrong, because I don't, unless you've got a machine that shows emotions, which you don't, because it's running on code that's running on binary, which doesn't have emotions baked into it. So if you're trying to running a machine, the only answer is Bitcoin. Now, there might be something that supersedes Bitcoin, but as a machine, I must rely on the duration of immutability as the primary feature, because that's the thing that says it's the biggest constant, if that makes sense.
Is Bitcoin an ego test? So do you have to kill your ego to exit the fiat matrix and see the potential of Bitcoin?
I think so. And I think that's actually probably why people that are very successful already probably see it last, because they don't have they don't have the motivation and incentive to see it now. Like they don't need to. They're fine, right? Everything's okay. So they might be a bit blinded by it to start. But the problem is, I think it is an ego test for some, but it shouldn't be. Like if you're anyone that's successful, they usually become successful from following like logical, logic paths. Now, the only reason why you see some successful people today say meh, whatever to Bitcoin, is because they've already finished. Like they've finished the game. They're not trying to figure out how to make more money. They've got their own setup and it works.
Yeah, maybe they don't have the spare time to study it.
If you've got to invest in it, it's like, you gotta learn about Bitcoin. Oh, really? Why? What can I do with it? Oh, dude, it's so good and it goes up and you don't have to worry about inflation and all that. I got 30 billion in the bank. I don't give a fuck about anything.
Right.
And it's like, and that's a hard argument to win. It's like, oh, well, what are you doing? Oh, dude, I'm a craftsman. I make timber chairs in my spare time because that's my passion. Oh, but no, trust me, you got to learn about Bitcoin. Why? And then the why becomes much harder. So the why in Moneyland is not really there. It's a bit like most people that are very successful, they got there from doing their own thing. So it's very common. Like if I talk to people that are high net worth people or whatever, and I talk about Bitcoin to them, they're like, yeah, okay, but I can see in their eyes, they know their path. They usually get to be successful by staying in their lane and sticking to what they know. And so when you see them and they're already successful, a lot of the time they're like, I don't know anything about tech. I don't know anything about money. I stick to property.
Never change a running system.
And you know what? And that's them. And they're successful because they've done that. And they might be able to be more successful. Oh, dude, you can make another 10 million. But to them, all that is ambiguity, uncertainty. And remember, predictability and risk. They're trying to keep this predictability thing as high as possible so that the risk is as low as possible. And usually, why do they want the risk as low as possible? Because they're older. People that are successful and people that are not against Bitcoin, but you have a harder time cracking into their consciousness of Bitcoin, are usually going to be older, and they're usually going to be more accomplished. So they're at the tail end of the game, right? Like they've sort of, been playing World of Warcraft, playing Fortnite since it came out in 2015 or something. So they're not as caring about the new season. Like they're like, dude, I've seen it all before. And yeah, I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it is fun. I'm sure driving cars and firing bullets is cool. But I'm sort of done. I'm enjoying chess at the moment. I played it, and that makes sense. It does make sense. So, but if you're young, I don't think you can take that excuse. I think there's an intellectual responsibility that you owe yourself. And I think that is the real ego test. It's, are you intellectually willing to be dumb, stupid, know nothing, and start from ground zero? And that's the best thing you can do. Because once you go, okay, you know what? I know nothing about anything. Beautiful. Now we have a fresh canvas. We're not, move that away. Oh no, it's that old thing. No, fuck it. All your old thoughts, your favorite economists, they all know fucking nothing. Not even sort of nothing. They know fucking nothing. And that's because you today, and I say you, I mean all of us, we have so much knowledge at our fingertips. The best way to translate this, think about how many vaginas a 75-year-old man saw by the time he was 75 in 1940. Just think about that number of vaginas or whatever, penises if he's gay, I don't care. Okay, translate that to any other topic. Like, okay, so now you say a 75-year-old man, like when you're 75, how many vaginas have you seen? A way different amount because porn existed during our lifetime, right? So porn is just an exaggerate, like the same as information. Information, like it's like you see more vaginas, you see more information. So as in the economics, if it's vaginas we're talking about in porn, then it's economics or like sound money or the understanding of what works and what doesn't work. And so all these economists, they didn't have the data to go through that we have to look at. Now, you can look at the US dollar and you can put that into a token model and call it a shitcoin. And that's the biggest currency on the entire planet, yet the smallest minds in the entire planet know that that's trash. And that's an example of how much the knowledge gap is compressed between, let's call them elites and, average Joes. It's gone from, they won't figure it out to, it's really shrinking down. And that's why that tiny gap we're at right now, that is like really tense. And as that gap shrinks, where the knowledge gap of, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. No, why shouldn't I be doing it? Like once people start calling things out, everything's coming parity to even, but it gets more and more tense. So anyway, sorry, that was a ramble, but is it an ego question? Is it an ego test? I definitely think so. Because the faster you're willing to be wrong, the faster you can learn it. And here's what I say is like the two superpowers for today in a world saturated with information, right? Saturated, we're drowning in it. It's two superpowers, humility and empathy. Humility is the size of the pipe that I'm letting in information from, right? Very small. If I'm very humble, I'm going to be willing to accept all information. Like, yeah, tell me your opinion, whatever it is. If I'm very narrow-minded, like, oh, you're an idiot or you don't know shit, then my pipe's very small. Oh, I only let in these opinions, right? But if I've got a huge pipe, something might stick. It might, you're throwing a million things at the wall. Like, look at Bitcoin mining. It's brute force. It's a million different opinions in trying to find the right one. So humility is the size of our pipe. Now, empathy is my ability to receive the information as intended by the sender. So if I've got a really big pipe, meaning lots of information coming in, the second best skill I can have is, well, how can I process that information with as fast as possible? And that means minimal back and forth, right? If you say something to me and I go, what? What did you mean? I don't get it. What do you mean? And now we've got a delay. So that's slowing down the ability for us to communicate back and forth. But if it's very crisp and quick, then it's just as fast as possible. There's no latency. And so that's why I think humility is making the pipe size massive, so the biggest net possible, with the fastest amount of latency. And that's why I think the superpower today in a world with information saturation, that feels like the best tools to have, because you can synthesize the bullshit from the good stuff pretty quickly.
To cut the signal from the noise. Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, yeah, there you go. Just translated that in like 5 seconds. Yeah.
No, it's perfect. Cypherpunks write code. What's the role of cypherpunks in a digital landscape which aims to make us addicted and dependent and subject to surveillance?
Cypherpunks, I think the biggest thing they can do is set the tone for how the code is deployed. Like we were talking about before, where cypherpunks write code, it's like they also set the tone for the engineering behaviors. Like, is the code fuck it, ship it? Like, is that the mentality with Bitcoin? No, it's actually the opposite. Fuck it, ship it is web mentality, or we can just go back and fix it. No, we can't, because when you deploy anything, these things, you can't roll them back. So you want to get them really right every time, which is why you make the smallest of changes when you do make any change. You never make big, drastic changes, because there can be heaps of cleanup. It can break a lot of stuff along the way. So I think actually the best thing that at least I've learned from the community and from just the way that people go about things is the patience and real rigor that everything is interrogated with for every new feature, every new upgrade or anything. And I learned that the most probably in the block size wars was when that was happening in 2017. It was like, I was sort of like, yeah, well, I mean, we're building this thing, Bitcoin mad. Like, yeah, why not? If we can just add it and make more people be able to use it, that makes sense. And then I talked to the Bitcoin maxis in my team, and they were like, fuck no, here's why. And then it came back to this, oh yeah, like we were talking about before, the cost of a node, right? Whether you've got $5 an hour or I'm making $5,000 an hour, we all need to play nice together, and we've got to run at the slowest pace, the person at the slowest pace, right? Just like a team or whatever, you go at the pace of the slowest person. And that's the same thing. The node cost will be at the cost of the poorest person. Like whatever the poorest person can afford, that's the target for node size and node bandwidth. And so that changes the block size, because the block size is it's not about 20 companies in Silicon Valley being able to service more people. It's about every cunt on the earth getting a ticket to this, being able to play on this football ground or whatever you want to call it, Everyone can come and play. It doesn't matter who you are, your color, your height, your fat, weight, whatever. You're allowed to play. And that's the most important thing.
Bitcoin is protected by numbers, but nevertheless, it's such a powerful tool. How can just numbers be so powerful? Is it just an imagination in our heads, or is there more? Is there some kind of dimension?
Yeah. So again, what has a low surface area of attack is, if I've got a glass cabinet, I can smash the glass cabinet, right? Like to get in, if there's something valuable. But if I don't have any glass around it and the valuable thing is invisible, then it makes it really hard. So that's why we use numbers in cryptography. So what we're doing is we're sort of tying numbers in knots, in really confusing knots that to us is very confusing, but it's very easy to check. Oh shit, yeah, that's a knot. I can see those two numbers are definitely tied in a knot. Just like two different lengths of rope, right? You got number A, number B, tied together. Okay, I can see there now one piece of rope with a knot in the middle. That's sort of what cryptography is. We're tying two prime numbers together. And so in RSA encryption, it's a multiplication of P and Q, which is just one massive number and another massive number. And the reason why these are hard to find is because those massive numbers are prime. And what prime means is that no one else knows them. And when I say no one else, numbers have divisors. So the number 6, people that know the number 6 is obviously 6, 1, 3, and 2, because 3 times 2 is 6. So when we create divisors, they're like almost social groups of numbers, like who can find who. Oh yeah, if you multiply me and him together, we'll get to that guy, no worries. And so when we use prime numbers, no one knows them. So they're like these people that are just in the middle of space, and these huge numbers that the only place between him and the beginning of the universe is the number 1. There's no islands in between. Like if you take the number 10, every divisor is like an island that you can hop back to the origin. And so these huge numbers out in the middle of nowhere, how do we use them? Because they're really hard to accidentally find. And that's why we use them. So prime numbers, when we look at how much they defend us, they are, let me tell you something. I thought Bitcoin was good because it was so strong. Prime numbers are Bitcoin on steroids. Exactly the same thing. To recognize a number as prime, you have to do the work, which means you calculate the divisors exactly like Bitcoin, where we know if we've found a block, it is correct with the entire history. Just the same way, when we find a prime number, we know that we've checked all the numbers before it to make sure that there is no number that multiplies into it. So it's brand new and it's unique. And so prime numbers are the mecca. They are the mecca of technology. The only reason we have the internet is because prime numbers. We don't know how to factor them. So prime numbers have no factors. Like I was saying, that no one knows them, right? There's no divisors that go into them. And that's like saying, like, we can't find we can't find prime numbers easily because there's no one that like goes into there's no path to finding them that we know of. But it is a huge defender of everything because of that. So right now there's a thing called the Clay Mathematics Institute, and they've got what's called the Millennium Prize problems. And they are 7 mathematics problems, and there's $1 million bounty for each of them if you get them correct. Only one of them has been solved, and the guy didn't take the money. A Russian dude, I think it was 2003 or 2006, legend. Anyway, he solved one of them. So there's 6 left. These problems haven't been solved in hundreds of years. They're called Millennium Prize because they're so hard to solve. But all of them come back to prime numbers. So every Millennium Prize, the barrier that we are hitting is prime numbers. We don't know how to figure them out yet. So like factoring primes, because they're not made of any factors, becomes impossible, like splitting the atom. We couldn't split the atom. We didn't think we could. We thought it was impossible because we thought you can't split something that it's not made of anything. My belief is that primes are the next thing. So the next big breakthrough in humanity will be splitting of the primes.
What's the benefit of finding a prime number?
Well, I mean, now the benefit of finding prime numbers is now, so if you look at this website we're on, right? So the website we're on, it says it's got a green padlock, which means it's secure. So that says, that's the SSL certificate says your prime number matches the prime number I'm looking for. If it didn't, it would turn red. Now, what's the importance of prime numbers? So right now, elliptic curve cryptography only works because we don't know much about prime numbers. So what changes if we figure out everything about prime numbers? Well, everything changes. So now it's going to be much harder to communicate on the internet. It's going to be much harder to communicate digitally because the obvious, like this obscurity and this unknown element of prime numbers allows us, that's a mutual thing that we all don't know. We don't know the secret to prime numbers, so we can all use it as a security blanket for Earth because we don't know it. My belief is that we will know it, and we will come to that point where we do understand them much richer than we do now. And just like we broke through by splitting the atom, just like we figured out E equals MC squared, like we will have a breakthrough. That's what we do as humans. We push the envelope, we break through, and when we do that, the world will look a lot different. Now, a great example, what happens with prime numbers? Well, prime numbers, when we're multiplying 2 prime numbers together, we introduce this thing in maths where we've got a thing called the discrete log problem, which is where if I've got an exponent, like basically I raise some number to a power, it's like 2 to the 5, whatever. When I do that, it's hard to go backwards to see, what was the power you raised it to? Like, and that's kind of the confusing part when we're using modular arithmetic, which is like clock math. So basically the idea is that we're making it really hard to find these numbers. But the truth is that with a discrete log solution, which is prime numbers and factorization and all that stuff, that's the mathematical equivalent of time travel. So it's basically going back in time to go. That is the smallest demonstration of time travel would be to factor a prime number because you're going backwards through. There's a specific amount of, if you have a prime number, if I give you a prime number and I say it's 1,024 digits, that's an RSA key, right? And you go, this RSA key is 1,024 digits of prime. I'm like, okay, cool. And you go, this will take that long, and that long might be 6 trillion years of brute force or whatever, right? Takes 6 trillion years to break this key or whatever. Okay, if you do that in 3 seconds, you have an answer that is much more superior than everything else.
All right, yeah, I get it.
Right, so now that would have taken 6 trillion years, but it took you 3 seconds. How? And then that opens a whole chasm of new things. Well, if that means you can factor prime numbers quickly, then it means RSA doesn't work. It means this doesn't work. But it also means in physics, we can go through wormholes. We can build wormhole. Like all these prime numbers, we need to think of them more as the smallest element in the universe. Like, because that's what they actually are. They are a collision of two other numbers. Like they are the small, just because they're not physical doesn't mean they're not real. In the same way, just because Bitcoins aren't real, just because Bitcoins aren't physical, doesn't mean they're not real. And when I say real, how do we define real? Well, let's not define real as something that's a sensory input. Let's define real as anything that can influence the physical reality. So if you can influence the physical environment, then hey, welcome to the real world, because you're part of it now. Because you're influencing it. And so I think that partition that we put in our minds between numbers being just this arbitrary tool, numbers are more like a species to me. And I would look at them and work with them in a way that feels much more like you're working with a car or like plants or something. Like they're going to have different nuances like another species. Like if you're working with plants, you water them or treat them a certain way. If you're working with timber, you're going to treat it a different way. Like you're going to be more delicate with plants, or you're going to water them, and with timber you might be cutting them or trimming them or something. Like it's the same thing. Numbers are just another species, another environment, and if we adapt to learn or try and understand them, we understand dogs, we understand birds, we understand all that stuff because they connect with our emotions. So when something connects with our emotions, our sensory inputs, it creates an empathetic loop. When I now go, oh, that thing's affected me, I feel for it. That's why when we have dogs and our dogs pass away, my dog doesn't speak English. I don't know if your dog speaks English, but mine doesn't. He doesn't speak any other languages that I know either. But we are very close, and he communicates with me and I communicate with him. So that's only because we give it a chance for us to communicate, because it seems logical, because it's a real thing that we can all agree on is a real thing. But if I'm talking to numbers, you're going to be like, this dude's fucking out of his mind. He's a fucking idiot. Yeah, he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, 200 years ago, we didn't even know bacteria exist. We're just learning.
This is the good thing and the bad thing. The beautiful thing is that we are just learning, and we always do learn as a species. We're always trying to learn. The bad part is when we think we don't need to learn. So when we think we know everything, and we're obviously the kings of the universe. No, that's not real. It's like, just slow down, cowboy. Like, let's just chill. We don't know what we don't know.
What are you currently working on right now?
Time travel. Factoring prime. Like as in, right now I'm studying the Millennium Prize problems, and I'm trying to work on a realistic way to produce a backwards time travel experience. So where it would feel like your perception is perceiving something from the past.
Interesting.
Well, because forward time travel is easy. You lock a bunch of shit in the future, and you get to say, if you lock a big thing in the future, it's like if I want someone to say a message in the future, then if I put that message as a private key and make the caret really big, then I know that private key or that message will appear in the future. Now, it's not magic. It's not time travel in this weird sense. It's actually just a very, very physical cause and effect loop. And I think that same loop can exist for backwards travel.
Talking about time traveling, and if you time lock Bitcoin, the future is guaranteed. The first time we as humans can guarantee the future, and therefore it changes the present.
Yes. Let's say you're standing on stage at a concert and you're performing, and then you throw a ball into the crowd. You don't know who it hit, but you know it's hitting someone with absolute certainty, and then you know your present will change. By you throwing that ball, you know that something's coming back. Someone's going to yell, someone's going to scream, the crowd's going to laugh. There will be a reaction or a response that will come back to you. Now, does that mean you're predicting the future? Not really, but yes, like that's just on the scale, because the cause and effect loop is so predictable.
Yeah, right now we can just try to manipulate the outcome. For example, if you want to finish a marathon next year, you have to train and prepare for it. But time locking Bitcoin is like you set the event that you will finish the marathon next year, so you don't have to train. Because you know.
I don't have to trade because I already know that it's going to get finished. Because all I have to be certain of that someone wants to steal. Like, will Bitcoin be valuable then? And the answer is, if it still exists, it will be. Like if I set a time lock for 1 year away, what's the level of certainty that those coins will get stolen? I could give you a guess. And that's why I time lock coins. And you see, like, I've got all these time lock coins because I was always wondering, well, what is if Bitcoin's popular, if people are willing to steal it today, and it's still alive in the future, then that willingness to steal should only increase. Does that make sense? Like, if they're willing to steal it today, then they should be willing to steal it tomorrow or the next day or whatever.
Are you checking the price? How often are you checking the price?
I mean, maybe I just did recently. Oh, my battery's running low. I did recently because there was like a notification saying it dropped heaps or something. But I mean, not really.
A couple of years ago, I was checking the price every hour, and now I'm like, I don't know what the price is. So
yeah, your value systems change, right? When you first get in, everything's about money because the only thing you're doing is trying to find opportunities. So you're like, how much is it? Oh, cool. Oh, I'm up 6% today. Oh my God, I made $2,000 overnight. Whatever it is. But as you start like digging into the meat on the bone, you realize, dude, you come for the money. You stay for the amount of just insight and personal growth that you get. I find anyway. I could be wrong, but I've enjoyed my experience and I'm very grateful for it. That's all I can say. I feel so blessed to be born in this time, and I feel super grateful for how smart all the cats are in this industry. Like, half the shit they talk about would never have crossed my mind. I just have no clue about that, like, kind of libertarian approach and just all that stuff. But it's been a really cool learning experience for me personally. So I'm just super grateful for that. It's mad.
Perfect. Thanks for your time, Michael. It was a blast.
Yeah, Nico, anytime, dude. Thanks. I appreciate you taking the time to chat and just like have a poke around. So thanks very much, man.
Thanks for watching. What do you think about time-locked Bitcoin and our conversation in general? I just love to hear him talk about Bitcoin. He is so hyped and is always blowing my mind. His authentic Australian character is so bloody awesome. I just had to smile the whole time listening to him. Have a great day and be the change you want to see in the world. See ya!